The 2D platformer is probably the most recognisable genre in all of video games. A lot of people, when they think of video games, will probably think of the original Super Mario Bros, which was released almost 30 years ago. Although a lot of people may think of the 2D platformer as the go-to genre for creating games back through the mid-80s to the early 90s. A lot of these turned out crappy, but some become masterpieces, taking full advantage of what the genre had to offer. That's not to say that we don't get some awesome 2D platformers nowadays, and in my list you'll see a ton of generations represented. So without further ado, let's take a look at my top 10 favourite 2D platformers of all time.
Number 10. Megaman. You know you're in for some good games when Megaman only comes in at number 10. A lot of the games on this list are before my time, and sadly I didn't get to play them when they were first released, Megaman being one of these. But if I can play these for the first time in this day and age, and still consider them some of the best of their genre, that's gotta say something about their quality and not just their impact. And what a quality classic this is for the NES, the king of 2D platformers. Simply put, Megaman just has everything that makes a game fun. It's simple run and gun action, tight controls, great level design, nice bosses. Being able to take bosses' weapons and use them on other bosses adds another layer to the game. You have to find the correct order to progress through the game, which makes it worth playing through multiple times. The Mega Man games are definitely known for their difficulty, and some are just brutal. But the first in the series isn't too bad. On the surface it looks as hard as the other entries in the series, but really it's not that bad. It's just the right amount of hard to not be frustrating. I know the general consensus is that the second and third games are the best in the series, but I really like the first one. Also, slight spoiler, Mega Man is not my favourite Capcom 2D platformer. Number 9. Vector Man. Next up we have another man game. Although neither of these so-called men are actually men. Mega Man's a robot and Vector Man is a collection of balls. Actually, Vector Man is an Orbot, which is basically a giant vacuum cleaner sent to clean the Earth after human pollution led to the Earth reaching uninhabitable levels. Due to a mishap, this giant Hoover needs to destroy another giant Hoover using the weapons that this Hoover was equipped with. Great story, just touching stuff. I'm sure this breaks the laws of robotics, but what are you gonna do? Anyway, Vector Man for the Sega Mega Drive, or as you Americans call it, the Sega Genesis, is another run and gun platformer. Unlike the Blue Bomber, Vector Man can shoot upwards and even diagonally. Revolutionary. You can also collect these power-ups to change which weapons you have, and even turn you into a fish and other cool shapes. The game also has some really pretty visuals, and great music to go along with it. And with these cool pseudo 3D levels, the Sega Mega Drive really gives the Super Nintendo a run for its money. Overall, the gameplay in Vector Man is just great, and it's one of my favourite games on the Mega Drive. If you haven't heard of it, you have to check it out. We got one sequel on the Genesis, which only released in North America, but apart from that, Vector Man's dead. It wasn't even in Sonic and All-Stars Racing, which would have been amazing because it could have been his own vehicle. Come on Sega, show Vector Man some love. Number 8. Yoshi's Island. Here we go, first Nintendo game. How many of them do you think we're going to see on this list? Well, what can I say, they're masters of the 2D platformer and don't show any signs of slowing down. In my opinion, Yoshi's Island is one of the first games which could be considered a real masterpiece in visual art. Not the first for creative art, but definitely visual art. When it comes to 16-bit graphics, it's really hard to come close to the beautiful, colourful nature of Yoshi's Island's visuals. It even needed the help of the Super FX2 chip in order to allow the possibility of morphmation and scaling. For a 2D game to require that chip, it's some pretty impressive stuff. Anyway, enough about graphics whoring myself out. This game is on the list for a reason, because of the top-notch gameplay. Yoshi controls super smoothly thanks to his flutter jump, which allows for some fun platforming opportunities, as well as some difficult ones. Speaking of difficulty, the game has great pacing. The beginning eases you into what develops into some tough final sections. Yoshi can also morph into different vehicles, which varies the gameplay up from time to time. You can even play as Super Baby Mario, cape and all. Really, it's just fun traversing through each level with a newly coloured Yoshi trying to protect poor baby Mario from the struggles of a platforming game. Just expect to hear this noise a lot. Now that I think about it, Yoshi's quite a hipster. He was platforming way before it was cool Mario. The game was also ported to the Game Boy Advance and does a good job of preserving the graphics and audio quality. But if you want the definitive version, it's gotta be the Super Nintendo version. You can also get high as fuck in Yoshi's Island. Number 7, Donkey Kong Country. Ooh, another Super Nintendo game with awesome graphics and awesome music. But seriously, CG rendered 2D sprites just look awesome. And that music! I would totally light scented candles and take a bath to that music. This game is kind of weird when you think about it. They just thought, yeah, we'll take this guy as a villain, make him an old dude, give him a grandson who's a good guy, give that grandson a tie and the same name as this guy, change this guy's name, give that tie-wearing grandson a nephew, and, for the hell of it, give that tie-wearing grandson a slutty girlfriend because, you know, chicks love ties. And this spawned into the entire Donkey Kong franchise that we know and love today. Rare, you're a genius. There's so much that's right with this game, none of which is more important than the level design. You got your vine swinging levels, your minecart levels, your stop and go levels, your snow levels, your barrel blasting levels, which can be so frustratingly fun. Those bees. Those goddamn bees. Even the underwater levels in this game are good. Haven't we all dreamed of a game where you can ride as a swordfish underwater as an ape? Donkey Kong Country's design is so great that the game is infinitely replayable. I've played through this game so many times and I haven't gotten tired of it. Just going through trying to get all the Kong letters in each level is fun. Not only that, if you're into speed runs, this game is perfectly suited for that thanks to Diddy Kong, who's faster and more agile than his beefy uncle. Donkey Kong Country has aged really well and is still pick up and play for any gamer. So go play or replay this game now and experience the thrill of getting past that last Kremlin on Minecart Carnage. Number 6, Beautiful Joe. So here we have my favourite Capcom 2D platformer, Beautiful Joe, one of the more recent games on the list. I was a little indecisive about putting Beautiful Joe on here since it was hard to determine whether it actually was a platformer or just a side-scrolling beat-em-up type game. But then I figured, well, certain sections require you to jump over things, so I'll pass it off as an action platformer. Movie lover Joe gets sucked into the movie screen and gets to start in his own movie in which he has to tear up bad guys and save his girlfriend. Along the way you'll be presented with environmental puzzles such as finding keys to progress and, you know, jumping over things like a platformer. Joe also has his awesome V-Watch powers that allow you to slow down time or increase Joe's speed. You have to use these effectively throughout the game to solve puzzles and to beat bosses. What I love about Beautiful Joe is the game's personality. The art style and the characters are what set Beautiful Joe apart from pretty much every game on this list. Famed Mario creator Miyamoto may place story at the bottom of his platformer list of ingredients, but when it's pulled off as charming as in Beautiful Joe, it shows that perhaps 2D platformers can benefit from a story, if it's done right and isn't a hindrance to the gameplay. Beautiful Joe is seriously dirt cheap now, so go pick it up for the PS2 or GameCube if you haven't done so already. Then you can join me in begging Capcom for a Beautiful Joe 3. Number 5, Rayman Legends. I've picked one entry per franchise for this top 10, so when deciding on a Rayman game to put in, it was kinda difficult to pick between Rayman Legends and the very first Rayman. Overall, it just boiled down to which game is more fun, and for me, that was Rayman Legends. In fact, Rayman Legends might just be the most fun game to come out in recent memory. It's certainly the best 2D platformer to come out in recent memory, even topping the latest entries in the new Super Mario Bros. Series, especially in the co-op department. So what is it that makes Rayman Legends so fun? Well, it really isn't no single thing, but a collaboration of everything that make 2D platformers enjoyable. The controls are super spot on, which makes the Twitch-based challenge of running through a level at high speed not a frustrating task, but a fun one. The level design is just incredible. You'll run into the same themed stages time and again, but you usually won't run into the same level layouts, and with over 100 levels in the game, that's pretty impressive. The replay value is off the charts. Throughout, you'll constantly unlock new challenges in older worlds. That's added on top of the cages that are hidden in every level, which don't feel like a chore to collect. The visuals are also outstanding, leaps and bounds better than Rayman Origins visuals, in my opinion. I could gush about this game all day, and if you want to hear me do just that, I've reviewed this game in full if you want to check that out. As to not repeat myself, I'll just finish by saying that the newly released Rayman Legends is my 5th favourite 2D platformer of all time. Number 4, Wario Land 2. Now we move on to the only handheld game on this list, Wario Land 2 for the Game Boy Color. This is the first game I played out of any game on this list and was one of my childhood games, so I guess I have a lot of nostalgia for this game. But it's not just nostalgia that made me place it at number 4. What I like about Wario Land 2 is that it's very different to every other 2D platformer. There are no pitfalls, so you can't die by falling down holes. In fact, there's no health, so you can't die at all. Each time you get hit, you lose coins which are invaluable to gaining 100% in the game. So in a way, they're more important than lives in other games. There are 2 ways in which you can play this game. The first is that you can just play to complete it, which requires you to do certain objectives in each level, usually involving getting to the end of the stage or beating a boss. Or you can play it the more fun way, which is trying to get 100%. This involves exploring each level in depth, finding the treasure in each level, or finding alternate paths and completing hidden objectives which aren't obvious. Doing so will lead to completely different levels and different endings to the story. There are 50 levels in total, which is quite a lot for an 8-bit Game Boy game. I also like that getting hit by certain enemies will change Wario's form, which is sometimes a help, sometimes a hindrance. Overall, Wario Land is a breath of fresh air from other platformers, and should definitely not be classed as a Mario wannabe. Number 3, Kirbys Adventure. You're probably thinking to yourself, really? Kirbys Adventure? Why not Kirby's Fun Pack, Kirby's 64 or Kirby's Epic Yarn? They're all great games, but Kirby's Adventure on the NES is just one of the simplest and funnest games that you can play to date. All there is to this game is moving from one screen to the next, beating enemies and avoiding obstacles. Some games try to incorporate fancy elements to spice up the typical platforming gameplay. Not Kirby's Adventure. Well, I guess he can float and copy abilities, but that's really the only abilities that Kirby has. Apart from that, it's just straight up, easy, relaxing, side-scrolling goodness. It's virtually impossible to get frustrated in this game. Don't get me wrong, I like a challenge, and it's part of the reason why I like Megaman and Donkey Kong Country. But sometimes it's nice to just play a game solely for its fun factor. Kirbys Adventure really pushes the NES to its limits with the amount that's happening on screen. In terms of the amount of content that this game has, the only 2D platformer that comes close on the NES is Super Mario Bros. 3. And we all love that game, don't we? Actually, I like Kirbys Adventure more than Mario 3. In fact, Kirbys Adventure is my favourite NES game. So there you have it, the NES had more platformers and the Xbox 360 had first-person shooters, and I think that Kirbys Adventure is the best of the bunch. Number 2, Sonic CD. You knew it was coming. You knew I had to put a Sonic game on the list of the best 2D platformers. I guess it was just a question of which one. And really, I can put any 2D Sonic game on this list. Sonic the Hedgehog 2, 3, the Advanced series, the Rush series, they're all great. But I decided on Sonic CD. It could be argued that 2D Sonic games have remained relatively the same since the first game was released in 1991. And that really is a good thing. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. So I chose Sonic CD because it's the best representation of classic Sonic gameplay, with a few twists. The 16-bit animation is made slightly prettier on the Sega Mega CD, as are the worlds that Sonic inhabits. The best thing in this game is that you can experience these worlds in 3 different forms, past, present and future, and you can switch between them whenever you find a time post. This means that 2 different people have totally different experiences while playing through the game, and even multiple playthroughs can lead to a much different experience. Even if you ignore this mechanic entirely, you're still playing through some of the best zones in any Sonic game. These zones are also accompanied with some of the best music from 16-bit Sonic, thanks to the Sega CD, and depending on your territory, you get to listen to different tracks. Sonic CD also introduced us to some staple Sonic characters, Amy, and one of my favourites, Metal Sonic. The moment where you have to race with Metal Sonic is unlike anything from any other Sonic game. It's one of my favourite moments throughout gaming history. The shame about Sonic CD is that it wasn't as popular as any other 2D Sonic at the time, as it was on the ill-fated Sega Mega CD add-on. Fortunately, it's been ported to most modern systems, so if the game passed you by before, now's your chance to play the greatest Sonic game of all time. And number 1, Super Mario World. I suppose you figured out by the amount of times I mentioned the Mario franchise in this video that a Mario game was probably going to pop up on this list at some point. And lo and behold, we have Super Mario World for the Super Nintendo, taking the number 1 spot as my favourite 2D platformer of all time. When coming up with this list, I ran into a few difficulties with placements of some games. One thing I was definitely certain of though was that Super Mario World was going to be number 1. I think I was certain of that when I first played the game. For me, Super Mario World combines everything good that I've said about the other entries on this list into one super awesome mega 2D platforming game. It's simple run and jump action like Kirbys Adventure. It's got some nice additions to the core formula without changing the original concept, like Sonic CD. It has the branching paths like Wario Land 2, and it can be bloody tough when it wants to be like Megaman. I guess it doesn't have the great story that Beautiful Joe did, but perhaps Miyamoto was right. The most important thing in a 2D platformer is the gameplay. Playing through Super Mario World for the first time is such a thrilling experience. The world map is much more intricate than Super Mario Bros. 3's, and some areas require you to finish levels in a certain order, or go back to find hidden switches to access different areas in other levels. In a way, the world map in Super Mario World is like one big puzzle game. It's really hard to put the greatness of Super Mario World into words without just saying, oh, the levels, the bosses, the music, the power-ups. If you're a platforming fan, you know what I'm talking about. I've played through this game loads of times, but I still go back to it every now and again, just for another run through. Perhaps the idea of collecting games and gaining a backlog has reduced the amount that we replay some of our favourite classics, and that's a shame. But when I sit down with Super Mario World, I put all that behind me and just have a good time all over again. And you can experience this with a friend because it has 2-player. Seriously though, you may be sitting there watching this and perhaps you're too young to have played this game. If that's the case, go get it on Super Nintendo, Game Boy Advance or the Virtual Console and play it.
Thanks for watching, guys. Feel free to tell me some of your favourite 2D platformers, or tell me some that I've missed out on that I should play. Also, in a week's time, I'll be talking about my top 10 favourite 3D platformers, so subscribe to make sure that you don't miss out. I'll see you there.